Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Effective Resume Thursday. We're very glad you're with us today. It is January 20th, 2021. No, 2022. I'll have to go fix that. Sorry about that. 2022. All right, please note this event is being recorded and is currently live on Facebook. The recording will be on the Career DFW Facebook page and the Career USA YouTube channel for others to view in the future. By participating in this event, you give consent for your name and picture to appear. Please note that any comments you put in the Zoom chat window will not appear in the Zoom recording. If you have any questions throughout the presentation, please just enter your questions into the Zoom chat window. As our speaker takes a break, we'll be sure to get those questions answered for you. If you're watching on Facebook, please just put your questions in the comment field. We are monitoring that feed. We will review one or two resumes live today online. You're welcome to submit your resume using the chat. You can submit your resume on the chat box, but if you'd like to, please delete your header information, because remember, this will be going out on Facebook. It will be going out. It will be on YouTube from here to eternity. So if you'd like to do that, you're welcome to send it to me. Just click on that file button. You can attach it and just send it to me, which says instead of sending to everyone, just pick me, and then we'll get it up at the end of this presentation. All right, well, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Jeff Morris. Back in 2008, I started a website called careerdfw.org to help those who are unemployed in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. In 2012, I started a second website, careerusa.org, to help those around the United States. I have written a book called What I've Learned About Your Job Search That You May Not Know. It is available on Amazon. I have been facilitating and leading the North Dallas Plano Career Focus Group since 2007. The group's been around since the late 1990s. I took it over in 2007, and I'll tell you about our interesting program we have coming up tomorrow at the end of this session. And since 2017, I've been a member of the practice interview team. You spend a lot of time working on your resume. You spend a lot of time on LinkedIn. You spend time networking. But what do you do to practice your interviewing skills? A resume and a LinkedIn profile is not going to get you a job. All it does is get you a phone call. What are you going to do when you get that phone call? So if you're not practicing your interviewing skills, please reach out to me and I'll be glad to get you some information on the practice interview team. For our speaker today is Locke Alderson. He's going to talk about what recruiters look for in resumes. I'll let Locke introduce himself and tell you a little bit about his background. Thank you for being with us, Locke.
Thanks, Jeff. Well, my background does include about 42 years in industry. Most of that was in recruiting and HR. Simultaneously, back in 2001, I started working in career consulting as a volunteer at our church, leading workshops and seminars. I've been a speaker at workshops and seminars. And since that time, I retired in 2010, finally did a search for University of Texas at Dallas in 2011. And then I guess devoted my time to working with those in job transition. As a result of that volunteer work, I got asked by Mullen International in 2013 if I'd like to try it on contract for 90 days. Well, that 90-day contract spread till 4 years and 90 days before they sold out to Lee Heck Harrison. Lee Heck Harrison picked me up about a month later, and I was with them for 2 years and finally stepped down in December of 2019. So we're going to talk about resumes today and about recruiting and what recruiters look for in resumes, since that's one of the things that you're trying to do is to get a recruiter to call you. And so that's the program we're going to talk about today. Again, how do you do that? What increases your chances of getting that phone call? And so that's our program. Jeff, if we want to share the screen, how do we do that again?
Yep, down at the very bottom, click on share screen, pick your presentation. There you go.
Can it work today?
Well, almost. Right now, it hadn't quite loaded yet.
Well, I can't. There we go. What did I do? Slideshow. From the beginning. Anybody who is interested in the slide, what did I do, Jeff? There we go. Anybody who is interested in the slides, if you want to send me an email at lockealderson.com, I'll be happy to send you the slide deck. And the reason that I offer that is because there are some interesting tidbits that are in the slides themselves. So that's kind of what we're going to talk about. But what do recruiters actually look for? In a perfect world, we wouldn't need a resume. But we don't live in a perfect world. We live in a real world where resumes are part of the landscape that we want to talk about. So what is a resume and what is it used for? Move that up. So why even have a resume? Well, it's basically a piece of advertising. You get somebody to call you. You probably got credit card applications before they kind of dried up in the mail. I used to get them at least once or twice a week. Now I'm getting cruise brochures because I am retired or semi-retired. So it's, again, most of that ends up in the trash. Most resumes end up in the B pile or the reject pile. It's also during an interview, it's the script of the interview. It's the information that you'll probably ask questions from in a lot of ways. Although the pit crew does some of that. I know the pit crew, I worked with them for about a year back in the 2013, 2014 timeframe. And after the interview, it's a reminder of who you are. Those things that you want to do. I know when I had my own recruiting firm for about 12 years, I had a candidate that interviewed with Tektronix, a company here in Dallas. They were looking for a sales engineer. Well, the hiring manager interviewed 40 candidates. How anybody can remember that many, I don't know, but that's one of the reasons we suggest that you put an inch margin around it. It gives them a chance to take notes in the margin. My candidate made it to the second round of 5 before they finally canceled the job. But again, that resume that you have might be their only reminder that they have of who you are and the kind of highlights of your career. The things that you want to include in your resume, you want to have a headline or marquee. Think about when you used to go to the movies. I don't know how many people go anymore. But when you used to go to the movies, if the name of the movie wasn't on that marquee out front, you probably wouldn't go to that theater to see it. And that's, again, the same kind of thing with your resume. If your headline on your resume doesn't match up the job requirements, you may not get considered for that particular position. It needs to have a summary. Usually that's a 3 to 6 line overview of your resume. And again, along with that, you want to show what you've accomplished, some examples that support your headline. And you want some keywords from the job posting. And again, there's an interesting resume. The only good thing, well, the only resume that's the perfect resume is the one that gets you what you want. That's usually a job or an interview. But if you were to share your resume with 100 people, 100 recruiters, you can get at least 100 different opinions. So the headline, which is important in that, is the job title that you're applying for. If you don't have a title, again, it may not be the right one. Again, if you don't have a title, they may not know what you're applying for, because recruiters typically are working with multiple job openings. I know at one point I had at least 50 openings that I was working. How anybody that can work 50 openings, I don't know, but we did. And again, a lot of those jobs were the same kind of openings that I was looking for them in different parts of the country. If you have an objective on your resume, skip it. Most companies don't care about your objective. They care about what they need, what their needs are, and how you meet that. You want, again, a summary, an overview of your resume, followed by a couple of bulleted accomplishments, the results of performing your duties. And those bulleted items, those bulleted accomplishments add credibility to your experience. The headline and your bulleted items may change with each resume that you send out. Again, you want to tailor it a little bit to the position that you're applying for. The resume needs to be visually appealing. Again, you don't want it too tight in terms of spacing. You want margins all the way around it, an inch on each margin. You again want to use a good size type font. We'll take a look at some of those in a minute. Anything below a 9 or 10 point type font is awfully hard to read as a recruiter. Keywords and skills from your profession. Job titles are very important because that's what recruiters look for. And accomplishments. They convey a value proposition of, this is what I've done for my employers, and by implication, that's what I can do for you. So let's take a look at the format on some resumes. Okay, what's the big deal about real estate? Usually it's about 2 pages. In terms of formatting, you want to choose a type font that's readily recognized by most of the applicant tracking systems. And we're going to take a look at a fancy font in just a minute. But here are some examples of Arial, Tahoma, Calibri, and Times Roman. You can see what they look like in different type font points, different point, 10 point, 11 point, 12 point. Usually for the body text of your resume, you don't want a 10 or 11 point. Again, I suggest 11 point for, oh, sorry about that. You want 11 point again, for Times Roman, some of the smaller type fonts like that in Calibri, so it's easier to read. Headline for 12 is usually a 12 point in terms of that. You want the 1-inch margins all the way around. You want to limit your use of bold and italics and underlining. You want something that's scannable. By that, what I mean, it's going to go through an applicant tracking system. It may get applied to a job board or through an email. Again, you don't want to use text boxes or headers or templates. Templates are okay for creating a resume, and certainly don't send it because you don't know what the applicant tracking system is going to do to the formatting that you've used in the template. In some cases, for headers, it treats them as a null field where there's no information in that when they call it up on their database. This is a wingding resume. I've gotten a 7-page resume like this when I was a recruiter, and I saved part of it. Again, at the top of your Word document, when you open a Word document, there's a toolbar at the top that allows you to change to different type fonts. Wingding is one of those toward the bottom. And by just clicking Control-A, you can hit the whole document and you can change the font either way. Again, but I thought this was kind of interesting because I don't speak in wingding itself. Again, this is just a recap of some of that other information. Scannability, but what about bullets and bold and underlining? I tend to limit the use of bold and bullets because it's information that you don't want to put too big an emphasis. Bold, if you use all bold in an email, it used to be called that you were shouting at the reader, okay? So that you want to kind of limit that. The contact information, make it easy for them to get in touch with you. Okay, make sure that you proofread it. I have a tendency to transpose digits when I'm typing or letters. I want to type that. You also want to have your LinkedIn URL if you have one. If there's one in your resume and you put it there, but if it's on the screen, I click on it, I can take me immediately to your LinkedIn profile. You want your zip code. Zip code is important because that's how recruiters locate you and your proximity to the job. Most candidates have taught recruiters, I don't want to drive more than 20 to 25 miles to work. So that's what they limit them. So when you go to a job board, you'll see the default setting for the limit is 25 miles. Headline needs to be a laser focus on what you're looking for. And a summary, again, use some concrete examples with it. If you have a technical background, you want to have a skills table. Again, when you're talking about your experience section, you want usually a good format is the company name and location on the left and the dates out toward the right. If it's a company that's not too well known, it's a good idea to include a one-line description of the company, a tagline. You want the job title, the duties and responsibilities. I would tend to limit that to 4 or 5 lines and then have some accomplishments. Okay, what were the results of performing your duties? Okay, so that's the thing. Following usually an accomplishment or an achievement is a bullet followed by an active verb and 1 or 2 lines as an example. Keywords, you want to spell them out more than once. Again, when I ran an ad, when I was with Oracle Corporation, I ran an ad in Minneapolis, Minnesota. I had moved over from Siebel to Oracle when they bought Siebel and was looking for a Siebel consultant in Minneapolis, Minnesota. I got 75 responses, was a pretty decent response, not too many, not too few. 50 of them didn't even have the word Siebel in their resume. I know why those people applied, because it was Oracle. Oracle probably had other jobs other than Siebel in Minneapolis, but I wasn't recruiting for those. So you want to do that. If you use an acronym like an MBA or FP&A, again, some of those acronyms, the first time you use them, spell them out. Because AMA, if you look in a dictionary in the back, AMA, there's about 20 different acronyms for AMA, American Medical Association, American Marketing Association, American Motorcycle Association. You want to list your certificates and awards and education. A lot of resumes that I've reviewed in my career simply talked about somebody's education. But what have you done to keep current with your profession? What kind of certification might you have had? What kind of awards you've achieved in performing your duties? References, I would tend to omit them. They take up space that you don't want to use. If asked for references, certainly have a list of references that you can submit to people. Pictures, I have pictures on resumes. Again, I tend to omit those simply because when I was in recruiting, we didn't consider resumes that had pictures on them. We didn't want to be called discriminatory. You want to do spell checking, grammar checking, as well as dates and numbers. The important thing about resumes, you want to be honest in your resume. Don't exaggerate too much. Again, maybe a little bit of exaggeration is okay. There's too much information out on the internet to check you out. Again, there was a coach at Notre Dame. He was hired up there, said he had a degree, found out that he didn't have a degree. 10 days later, he was asked to resign. He was a very successful head coach, football coach at a school in Florida after Notre Dame, took them into the top 10. So it doesn't matter. Sometimes it doesn't matter what your pedigree is, but if you're not honest about it, it can get you released. There's such a thing as a resume black hole. If you've ever sent your resume into a job posting and never heard anything or been ghosted, it's gone into the black hole. What's happened is with the advent of the internet, you could send out multiple resumes in one day. To deal with that stack of resumes, companies adopted software, applicant tracking software, which tends to filter out resumes. So what you're trying to do is to get filtered in. If you've got a good resume and it's not getting results, why? You might want to ask that question. Well, first, some statistics. For every job posting, if there's a couple hundred people that look at it, 200 people may say, that's interesting, and 100 may actually submit a resume for consideration. And then they get filtered out, often by an applicant tracking system. Generally, it's about 3/4 to 4 out of 5. The resumes end up in the B pile. Maybe 25 get reviewed by a real person, hopefully a recruiter, but not always. And maybe 5 to 10 actually get a phone interview. And it used to be face-to-face interviews. Now it's more likely to be a phone interview, or a couple of phone interviews, or a Skype interview, or a Zoom interview, and one gets an offer. Usually when I was doing recruiting, my acceptance ratio was about 85 to 90%. Candidates I interviewed and got down to the offer stage accepted an offer. Okay. So how do you get considered for the position? Like tips for getting your resume considered by the recruiter. Again, read the job posting. If you don't match about 80 to 85%, the requirements don't apply. Remember my Siebel example? Well, 50 of those didn't have the word Siebel. They were not in their resume, were not candidates for that position. Then I would look and see how many times that keyword for me was Siebel was in their resume. If it was once, might mean they were a Siebel user and used the software. If it was 10 times, it might be a Siebel consultant, somebody who's actually installed different versions of Siebel in somebody's computer. Have a scannable resume, no fancy fonts or borders. Limit your use of bold and italics. We'll take a look at some resumes with a lot of bullets in them. Don't put your contact information in the headers and proofread it. Have a job title in there and have that summary. Again, I'm repeating a lot of these things because they're very important. And limit your experience to usually to 10 to 15 years. If you have other experience you want to include it in a subheading called prior professional experience, and just list the company and the job title. And if there was an accomplishment that particularly stands out, you want to include that as well. Okay, here's a quick look at my resume. You can notice the name, the contact information, my Gmail address. I don't have my LinkedIn URL, and here's a home phone number in there. Today, you don't usually need to put the H for home anymore. Here's a four-line summary, along with a couple of bulleted accomplishments for when I was doing career transition work and my experience at Locke Alderson. That's a quick look. Recruiters will spend 6 to 10 seconds scanning a resume to determine whether they want to actually sit down and spend some time looking at it. One of the ways that you can do that is to actually dissect the job posting. What you want to do with that is to identify the job requirements and prepare a table with the job requirements in the left column and how your experience matches in the right column. It doesn't have to be a perfect match, but what have you done that's like the experience that they're looking for? Then you can use that table as the middle paragraph in a cover letter. You can also use it as a guide when you're actually doing phone interviews, having on your desk your resume, the job posting, and this table. We'll take a look. This is an actual job posting. It's condensed to get it onto a screen. This is for DXC here in Richardson. It was looking for a sales executive. And what were their requirements? We took that, the candidate I was actually working with when I was at Locke Alderson, and we cut it apart. We took the job requirements and pasted them in the left column. You can see the right column is blank, and we filled in his right column items that match up with each of the requirements that are on there. Again, we took some of those bullet examples, used the title for the job posting. And we took a couple of the bulleted items from his experience and plugged them in under his summary and his resume. The title and the bulleted items may change with each resume that you send out. Well, that's a way that you can apply that. The next step is you can do a cover letter. A lot of cover letters have 3 different sections: how you found the job, maybe it's on a job board, or somebody referred you to the position. That's your first paragraph. The second paragraph is usually a narrative. Most of them are narratives about how you match the qualification. And then the third paragraph or third section is arranging to get together to talk about the position. In that case, most of those kind of letters, as many as 75 to 80% of all cover letters, don't even get read. So make it easy for your reader to identify with what you've done. In this case, we took the job requirements and just pasted that table in here, as you can see right there. It's a lot easier. Or you could take and just use the right column and put that in the letter. But again, they're looking for A, B, and C, and you've got A, B, and C. So the reader may not understand all those, but if your words match their words, there's a greater likelihood that you're going to get further consideration. Again, here it is as just a single column in the cover letter. The other thing in your resume that you want to have to get it considered, more tips, make sure the keywords that appear in the job posting are in your resume, because that's what recruiters actually look for. They look for job titles. That's typically the number one. They look for skill sets that are in your background, that are in the requirements that they're looking to fill. And if they don't match, they typically will move on to the next resume. The first response to a job posting could be as soon as 1 to 2 minutes, and it may be as many as 200 or 300 in the first hour. You perhaps have seen situations where you found a job posting and come back to it later, and it's been taken down, or this position is no longer available. My touchpad is particularly sensitive. I apologize for that this morning. Okay. Include the accomplishments. These are the measurable results of performing your duties. And focus on getting your resumes into the hands of the hiring manager. Find out who they are using LinkedIn for the company. You can send it to them. Have someone in your network that you know that maybe works there become an employee referral, because often there's an employee referral program where there's a bonus. When I first joined Siebel, that bonus was $2,500 a head if somebody stayed for 90 days for a Siebel consultant. Had one candidate and one employee had 4 in the first 6 months. So he had 10 grand that was in his pocket less the taxes. Again, the other way that you can do it, are there any other different delivery channels? Rather than sending it via email, you want to send it snail mail, or take a look and do a FedEx envelope or UPS or registered letter. Registered letter and the envelopes, often somebody has to sign for those. So they get a little bit additional education and consideration in that. Have you ever competed with something called the purple squirrel? Well, purple squirrel is that ideal candidate that the hiring managers say that they're looking for. Somebody who has all the qualifications and experience that they're looking for. They meet the requirements that the candidate, that the hiring manager wants, but they often work for peanuts. Well, I haven't found too many in my career like that. When I got that request from a hiring manager, I would frequently say, haven't found that candidate yet. But I have found some that are close. Well, what's going on with my computer today? We're talking about accomplishments now. Again, what's the big deal about accomplishments? Well, again, you want typically a STAR story or a SAR story, the situation, the action taken, and results. You want to start with a bullet and an active verb. And then how do you find those? Maybe performance reviews or letters of recommendation, LinkedIn recommendations. Or maybe you've written an article consider what you've done in the last 6 months that you're particularly proud of, or write an article for the Reader's Digest, my greatest accomplishment in my career. What would you want to write about in that situation? Where possible, use dollars and percents to convey impact. Maybe making before and after comparisons with competitors, the industry, your predecessor, others in your work group. What were the results or terms? Did it say make money or save money? Okay. You might want to ask the question of any bulleted item like that. So what? What was the significance of this? Does it tell a complete story? Those are the kinds of questions you want to ask about your accomplishments, your achievements when you put them in there, because often they don't tell a complete story. Let's take a look at some resumes now. This is a chronological resume for a candidate from Coca-Cola, actually one that I talked to a number of years ago. I've updated it so it has more current dates, but you can't touch the touchpad. Notice he's got his headline there. He's got a summary there. He's got some skill sets here that he's mentioned. He's got some experience that's there. Okay. He also mentioned in terms of Coca-Cola that one-line tag item to explain who it is. Is this the bottler or is this the manufacturer of the syrup in Atlanta? This is actually with the bottler companies. And what he's done, he's got some accomplishments listed there. So that's a way to take a look at somebody's resume, things that they're looking for an operation manager was what he's applying for. Let's take a look at a bulleted resume. Nothing wrong with a bulleted resume, but as a recruiter, I'm taking a look at a resume in 6 to 10 seconds. So I'm going to ask you which of these numerous bullets over here are the ones you want me to pay attention to. A suggestion for doing that is to modify that and to list out the accomplishments separately if you use bullets, as you notice on here. He's got his headline, he's got a summary here as well, and that kind of information. Okay. Here's another one. We're looking for somebody that was looking to change careers. She has a degree in education, which she listed up front. She was an honors graduate, so she had pretty good grades. And her credential was, she's got a credential from the state of Kentucky in elementary education. She's listed her experience here and here. She's also talked about the other things that she's done. She wanted to get out of that, so I suggested that she use a functional type resume where she listed her areas of expertise in terms of communications, administration, and sales. Most functional resumes, recruiters don't like them because they tell what you've done and maybe some of your accomplishments, but they don't tell where you did it and when you did it. So she's included at the bottom her experience down at the bottom, as you can see. Here's another one. This happens to be for me as a recruiting manager. It lists my areas of expertise. The bottom of the second page has my experience. It says there. But if the job or title were different, say they were looking for somebody as a manager, that lists, so I'm going to list my management skills first and my recruiting experience. Might be my other areas of expertise like compensation and benefits, training and development, or other facets of HR that I have experience in. So what's going to get attention of a recruiter? Again, matching the requirements of the job. What are your skills? What are the job titles that you have? And if you do have an unusual job title, spell out what the actual job title is when you go looking for another job. That's what they're looking for. That's what the computer's going to look for, not that unusual job title like member of technical staff 3. Have a scannable resume. Again, don't use the text boxes because text boxes and headers, again, a header will treat applicant tracking system will treat a header as a null field, may not look at anything. So when I call it up on my database, I have no way to get in touch with it, even though your experience matches the requirements that I'm looking for in my job. Proofread your resume, have a headline, have a summary, and dissect the job posting. Take a look at the requirements, include keywords from the job posting. It's vitally important. Some do's and don'ts, again, keywords and phrases. They're the things that attract people's attention. How many times does that keyword or that phrase appear in your resume? Focus on your current position. What were the results of performing your duties? Most resumes are in a reverse chronological format. That's the one I tend to recommend for people. Quantify your achievements. Put those results in there. Give the measurable results. They add credibility, and do sweat the small stuff, the dates, the phone numbers, the addresses, how to get hold of you. Again, if you would like a copy of the slides, just send me an email and I'll send you a copy of the slides. Jeff, I'm going to bring it back to you.
Thank you very much, Locke. If anybody has a resume and you'd like us to look at your resume, if you want to delete the header information, you're welcome to do so. And then you can send it to me and I will pop it up on the screen for us all to take a look at if you'd like to. If not, if you have any just questions you'd like to ask, please do. Analyzing that job description is very, very important, because matching those keywords are what's going to get you that phone call. And when you do get that phone call, I highly recommend the first question that you ask is, what was it about my resume that made you call me?
That's a good suggestion, Jeff. Another way to do that after you've given that answer to usually the icebreaker question that starts phone calls, tell me a little bit about yourself. After you've given your 30-second or your pitch or your 1-minute resume, turn around and ask a question at the end, a transition question, something like, I've told you a little bit about me. Can you tell me a little bit about the ideal candidate that you're looking for? And the reason that you want to do that is to verify what are the job requirements. The other thing that you want to do, and sometimes the requirements that are listed may not be the requirements that they are listing, okay? And it also identifies if there were 20 requirements in the job posting, usually the manager is going to give you 3 or 4 that he's interested in. So those are the ones that you tend to want to focus on.
Kathy, did you have a question?
I do. Could you, Locke, define what, can you quantify what sharing too much information on your resume equates to?
Well, think about this. A resume is usually 1 to 2 pages. It's a summary of your experience. Again, it's not your life history. It's not War and Peace. Most resumes are going to be 1 to 2 pages, maybe 3 if you've got a little bit extra experience. There are some exceptions to that. If you're applying for a teaching position at a college or university, they like length. They like to see all of your publications. So again, those are the kind of things that you want to talk about. Usually people are interested in what is your most recent experience, because that's what they're going to pay for. If you have experience as a computer programmer, if it was in COBOL, which is still being used out there, again, that's fine, but that's not the current languages that a lot of programmers are using today.
Okay. So is 3 bullets about the average number of bullets for accomplishments for each role that you've had?
I would go no more than 2 or 3. Again, if you give more, what are you asking the recruiter to pay attention to in that first few seconds? Because that's what's going to get them to look further at your resume. They're looking at your skills and your experience. Do you have let's say you're a computer programmer. And if you have a computer programmer, they're typically languages that you've worked with, or operating systems that you've worked with, there's computer hardware that you're working with. Those kind of things can be identified and placed in a skills table. As a recruiter, I like to see those up front on the first page of somebody's resume.
Okay.
I saw that there was a resume that got shot through, Jeff.
Oh, okay, it just popped up. I'll open it up here. Just one other thing I want to make about your resume, 2, 3, 4 bullet points, whatever it is. The important thing is that the bullet points match what's in the job description, because everybody here's done a lot of really great things, but if they don't ask for it, don't tell them in a job description in that the resume you submit, because you want those things to match up. There's a good chance that there's a 22-year-old recruiter who just got out of college who's been said, hey, go find me, somebody who can do this. They only see the job description. They may not even understand what's in the job description, the technical part of it. They're just looking for something that matches. So just sort of restrict whatever bullet points you have in your resume to whatever bullet points or whatever the requirements are in the job description.
That dissecting the job posting that's in the presentation that I did, usually those are 2 to 3 line items that are bullet items. They start with an active verb and what did you accomplish? What did you do? Did you design something? Did you create something? These are the things that they're in. They're active verbs. They show what you've been doing. Those kind of things. And they may change out. Those, particularly the bullet points underneath your summary, probably going to change with each resume that you send out, because that's what's important to the recruiter. That's what's going to get them to go beyond that first third of a page of your recruiter, which appears on their screen.
All right, let me share this resume. Give me here just a second. Let's see here, share screen.
Did I end? Okay. Okay. Notice this individual, let's take a quick look at it. It's got a sales engineer, got the title that they're involved with. Okay. At the bottom, Jeff, there's okay, thanks for expanding it. Okay, he's got some experience underneath that. I wouldn't know that these are bullets, okay, but as a customer solutions person working closely with customers, what was a solution? What was the most significant solution that he came up with? In terms of technical sales, what was the size of the sales that you did? What was your quota? Did you achieve a quota? I know when I took a detour in my career, I made salesman of the month after 3 months in an office of 9 salespeople. Okay, so what did you do? In that situation, I increased sales. One of the reasons I got that, I increased sales by 100% from prior month to the current month. Again, I could say it that way in the resume, or I could say that I increased sales from 5,000 a month to 10,000 a month. Now that was about 40 years ago, so you bear with it, those numbers would expand in today's marketplace. Again, taking a look at that, he's got his company down, his professional experience. Again, where they're located, he's got some bullet accomplishments. Again, something I see in a lot of resumes and was responsible for. Well, if you weren't responsible, you probably weren't there anymore. So I would use some other words. He managed to create
the first time that he qualifies what he did is, down here, reduce downtime by 75%.
Is the fourth bullet.
Right. So, give every bullet play, Carol used to say, every bullet you should ask the so what game. So you read that focused on providing project management engineering service to capital equipment manufacturers and other system integrators. So what? What was the result? And then share that, because results sell.
Well, the other thing that I'll tell you about that, you can mix bullets like that to describe duties as well as accomplishments. But if you have a lot of bullets, you want to break that out into maybe a subheading that says accomplishments or achievements. Okay, these aren't too many. Again, most of these I would ask, well, what did you do? What did you really accomplish as a sales associate at Sensor Logic in Addison? Okay, what kind of territory did you cover?
What bugs me is right here. Look at this. Get these spacings to all be correct. I mean, it's just a matter, I think, of moving getting this little line moved over so that you're getting
the toolbar at the top. Yeah, move those line markers over so it lines up there.
Right.
Okay. Let's scroll on down and see what else in there. Okay. Again, the bulleted accomplishment on this one is at printing research. That's the last one. I might want to put that as the first one in the group. Successfully designed and implemented electrical hardware and software for a comprehensive industrial product line. How big was the product line? Who were the customers? And what kind of industrial? Was it for machine tools or was it something else? He's got an MBA, which is great. And he got a BSEE from University of Tulsa, which is great. Community activities, those are sometimes those can be icebreakers in a situation. Somebody was a Boy Scout. We both know a guy named Peter Gailey. When he was doing recruiting, he was a Boy Scout leader for Council 10 and worked with them. This guy had been at South Lake Focus Group. Okay. He enjoys do-it-yourself home audio projects as well. His technical skills, I would take that technical skills and probably put it up at the top of the resume. Okay. Because he's got that kind of experience. That's something that technical recruiters tend to look at those kind of things in a hurry, because it's a way to sift through resumes in a hurry. Good looking resume. Other than that, again, I would focus maybe a couple, rather than using all bullets like that, I might use a couple lines, maybe 2 or 3 lines to describe your duties other than bullets, and use the bullets for the accomplishments. But again, that's a personal choice in terms of how you write the resume. And there's only one perfect resume, and that's the one that gets you the results that you want.
Locke, what do you think here? I mean, it just hit me what I was trying to figure out. Something was bugging me about this resume. I've always seen that you want the company name on the first line and the job title underneath it.
Yeah, I tend to like that way. I'm not really hung up on that. Okay. I would tend to put the company name, because companies ask the name, what's your pedigree? That's what the recruiters sometimes ask. And when I buy that, I mean, what are the companies that you worked for? When I do the LinkedIn presentation in another 10 days, 11 days, again, one of the things that recruiters look for is they look for companies that you may have worked for. So they'll do a search and they may put Apex Logic, okay? This individual appears to be a design engineer, electronics engineer, again, but I don't see the kinds of things that I would look for when looking for a technical engineer, okay? So that's just a little thing, but again, I would move that technical skills table up to the front page. And likewise, sales.
The person who happened to send us his resume said that those are correct on my screen as far as the spacing issues over here. So that's one of the reasons why when you send the resume, you've got to be very careful, because everybody's computer is going to do things a little bit different. Your computer may show this last bullet point on the bottom of page 1, but because it's the way my printer operates, it doesn't show it on page 1. That's why a lot of times when you send the resume in, if you're sending it to a person, you may want to send a PDF file, because that way you know that whatever you send is what you want them to see is going to look exactly how you want it to be. So just
the only danger with that, Jeff, is not all the applicant tracking systems accept PDF files as they appear.
Well, right. If you're going to do it as a PDF file, right, then you have to send a Word document in. But if you're sending it to a person, like I said, if you're sending it directly to a person, you can send in that pretty,
PDF file.
file that you've got formatted correctly. And there's no reason to put on the second page. You see some people put their name, page 2. You don't need to do that nowadays, because nobody's printing out resumes. They look at it online and they go, okay, either save it or they don't save it.
Right. Do we have anybody else that has a resume where we can take a look at and tear it apart? Hopefully we're doing it constructively for that situation. So.
Yeah, good information, just more results, because results will sell.
If anybody, as I say, would like a copy of the slide deck, lockealderson@gmail.com, would be happy to send it.
So we've got a question here. Was it necessary to go back that far to the early 90s?
That's a good question. There may be experience in your early years that you want to bring forward. And one of the ways that you can do that is those 3 bullet points underneath your summary. Again, in listing that prior experience, you might list it, prior professional experience, the company name, but no dates. Again, that tends to show how old people are. It may be 10 years, it may be 15 years that you go back. But there's generally a natural break in there where you've gotten a promotion. And if all of that has been at one company, prior professional experience at Texas Instruments, say. So list those other jobs, titles that you've had. Here's another resume.
So this resume is actually the sample resume that I'll be glad to send out to anybody who wants it. Notice here, they list a couple areas of expertise. Just make sure that the most important ones that you mentioned are either the top 3 or the 3 over on the very left-hand side. Something else I think is very, very handy is when you list the company name, underneath it, put one line explaining what the company is. There are millions of companies out there. I've been doing this. I mean, Locke's been doing this a lot longer than I have, but I've been doing this since 2007. And it's amazing to me that even today I hear about company names that I've never, ever heard of before. So if you can give a little one line telling somebody what the company is, that would be really beneficial.
Well, in response to that, I worked for Mostec when I first came to Texas in '76. Again, that's 76. Well, Mostec went out of business in 1983. So a lot of people don't even know who they are. They may think, well, who was that? Well, at the time that I went to work for them, they were the world's leading producer of random access memories. Okay, the technology has changed markedly since then. It's gone overseas. But again, at the time, they were the world's leading producer. So those are the kind of things that give an impact of who you are. That you were hired by a company like that to do, for me, it was to do recruiting. For you, it may be something else.
Right. If you happen to have a couple different jobs at one company, you want to list the overall dates on one line and then list the different dates with those jobs that you had right next to each other. Because if you were to pull those dates and put them over here, right justified, it makes you look a little bit more like a job hopper, where in this case, you're not showing that. So that's just a way to help.
The other thing about that question, going back into that, is as it says here, there may be some relevant experience that you want to include in that. And that's a reason that when I use a hybrid resume, which I mentioned and showed in the slides, I could list the areas of expertise that I had, and I could bring to the top the area that was focused on what the job might be. So I have 5 different paragraphs in that resume of skill sets and experience. I could bring the top one. But that's a way, if I had to work early in my career, I had to work with affirmative action plans. Again, those are kind of important to some companies today in HR. I don't include it because it's been 40 years ago.
Kathy asked a question. Any recommendations for uploading a resume and a cover letter? Should they be bundled together in one file with the resume first followed by the cover letter as page 3? Or some corporations only ask for a resume and there's no prompt for a cover letter?
It's a way to include additional information about your background and how you met. I mentioned that table cover letter. You can make that a page 3 in a resume. It's a good suggestion.
All right. Anybody else have any other questions? I'm going to put in the chat box right now the sample cover letter. Let's see here. No, yeah, sample cover letter. And I will put in the chat box the sample resume that I just had up there. Let me look for that. Let's see here. Sample, there we go. Sample resume. So both of those are in the chat box. You can go and download at your convenience. Will you put out give us your email address? Can you type your email? There you go. So if you want the slides, Locke just put his email address in the chat box, lockealderson@gmail.com. So those are out there for you. So Locke, thank you very, very much. Great information as always. Thank you for sharing. Let's see.
My pleasure, Jeff.
Let's see here. If you want to if you were not able to download a sample resume, we also have a couple one-page bios. If you're interested in that, and the T-cover letter, you can always send a resume. Send an email to resume@careerdfw.org, resume@careerdfw.org. Let me know what you're looking for, because I have people sending me emails all the time asking for different documents. And if you do that, I will get those documents, reply back with those documents. Career DFW and Career USA, we're putting on training 4 days a week. Hopefully you'll join us. As I mentioned, tomorrow morning at the North Dallas Plano Career Focus Group, Be a Better Brand. And this will be part 2 of 2. If you missed part 1, I put an email out earlier in the day where you can go watch part 1 if you'd like to watch it this afternoon or tonight. I also put out the handout that we'll be using that they used last week. If you need to get that, you can also email me and ask me for that, and I'll get you those links. Just reach out to me. You can find me on LinkedIn, and I'll get that information out to you. Next Tuesday, for LinkedIn Tuesdays, we do a LinkedIn presentation every Tuesday. Kurt Vondermatter will be with us to talk about LinkedIn from a recruiter's eye. Kurt is a retained search consultant. In fact, he just sent me 2 jobs that I'll be pushing out to the email list here shortly of people he's looking to hire or looking to place. He pays LinkedIn $10,000 a year for a full-blown recruiting package that allows him to look into LinkedIn and find you. And he's going to show us how that works and what you need to do to be found. Next Wednesday, the practice interview team meets every Wednesday. You can watch a live practice interview. This is sort of in preparation of going back live. When we were meeting before COVID, we were doing real interviews on Wednesdays, and we're trying to get back to that. So you get to watch a real interview, you get to watch the feedback, You can then make some suggestions and comments at the end of the session. So please join us every Wednesday. It's only on Zoom. There's no Facebook Live for that presentation. So you can join us for that. And then next Thursday, the fourth Thursday of the month, we're going to talk about networking. Every session, we have a different speaker who talks about networking, shares their thoughts. So join us for networking next Thursday. This session has been recorded. It is going to be on the Career DFW Facebook page and the Career USA YouTube channel. On the Career USA YouTube channel is the easiest way to look at these things. Click on playlist, and then at the very bottom, click on view full playlist, and then up will come a list of all the different titles and dates and times. The newest one will always be on the top. If not, click on the little sort button to get it back the other way. But the newest video should be there that you can go back and watch at your convenience. If you're not receiving emails about our workshops, you can join the Career USA mailing list. Just send an email to Career USA, +subscribe @groups.io. You'll never be spammed, but what you will get every day is the title of the day, the topic of the day, and most importantly, the Zoom link and Facebook link that you can click on to be able to watch the program right away. So please remember, Career DFW, we're a 501c3 nonprofit organization. All of our speakers, Locke's a volunteer, I'm a volunteer. We have no full or part-time employees. We're strictly here to help you land your next great opportunity. So thank you very much for joining us today. Locke, once again, thank you very, very much. Hopefully we'll see some of you all tomorrow morning.